Thoughts on taking BPC-157 for healing knee pain. So that is a peptide that's been around for a while, but it's getting more popular on social media. Is it underrated? Is it overrated? That's really hard for me to say because we don't have studies on it, like very good long-term studies. I would say it's properly rated. I have friends who have had like Achilles tendinopathy, or one guy who had a rupture and then he just always had some tendinopathy and never really healed. He injected directly and he said it was better within a week. And you hear these stories quite a bit. I've also heard stories where people inject it directly into the site and it did nothing. So it's he said, she said. I have tried it orally for 30 days. My experience, so first of all, let me tell you why I took it. I took it because I was actually dealing with some patellofemoral pain in the knees, both knees. I was an idiot and I didn't listen to my own advice, and I ramped up my on-court stuff really fast. So in the last podcast, I talked about how I played in the 76ers practice that one time, and I did pretty good. And after that, I was like, I'm a basketball player, I'm back. And then like every other day I went super hard playing ones, like I was 20 again, with no ramp up to this point. And then all of a sudden my knee started aching like I was old. And I've never felt a knee ache. Now, I've been jumping intensely for 30 straight years, playing basketball for 30 years. So of course I've had the patella tendinopathy, the jumper's knee flare-ups here and there, but I got that down to a science. I know how to handle that. I know what kind of workload spikes are going to cause that, but I've never had like achy knees. It was a weird thing. At first I was like, do I have arthritis? Am I getting old? And no, it turns out it is patellofemoral pain syndrome, which is actually probably even more common than jumper's knee. We talk about jumper's knee a lot just because the kids, 13 to like 25 struggle from that. Outside of that, like after that age, patellofemoral pain syndrome is actually more popular. And you've probably heard of it called runner's knee. So a lot of people from jogging long distances will get this pain. And it's pain in the front of the knee. Sometimes people confuse it for patella tendinopathy, but it's a very different injury, and it's healed entirely different, right? The mid-range isometrics don't quite work as well. And if you want me to do a whole podcast on how I actually healed my patellofemoral pain syndrome, I could do that. I don't want to take away from this podcast. But anyways, I was struggling with that. And it kind of was defeating me for like a straight month and a half. And I've never been defeated by a knee injury. Like I said, I've been doing all this intense stuff for so long, and I've never had a surgery, a lower body surgery, never had a knee injury. All I've had is little patella tendon flare-ups. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And so I couldn't heal it. So I started doing research on peptides. Came across BPC-157, which you guys have been asking me about for several years, but I've never really taken. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be getting questions about this for the next several decades. I should probably have a little bit of experience with it. So I actually asked one of my physical therapy friends, who's probably one of the best physical therapists of all time in the NBA, has rehabbed some of the best, some of the biggest injuries in the NBA. And I talked to him about it, and he was like, I can't recommend anything. There's no studies. It's he said, she said. But he said, I would not inject it. I would not inject, especially in cartilage or tendon. He said that he's been hearing that a lot of people are injecting things in tendon, whether that's BPC, whether that's PRP. And he's saying that it could build up scar tissue in the tendon. It is an injury in itself to the tendon, just the needle going in. And so that's why he actually doesn't recommend PRP at all, which the research isn't great on PRP, but he said that can actually cause long-term issues, injecting directly into the tendon. So he's like, yeah, whatever you do, just don't, if you take it, don't inject it directly. And so I did it for 30 days, very expensive. It was like several $100s, because you could, people get it online, but it's sketchy. You don't know where it's coming from. It's not regulated. So I actually went to a clinic close by where I trusted them and they had a better source. And I took it. I took it every night, just one pill. What did I notice? It didn't really heal my knee pain. It wasn't magic. But like I said, it's kind of like ibuprofen on steroids. It really does decrease inflammation. And so every morning when I would wake up, like after a hard workout in my mid-30s, if I worked really hard the day before, I'm going to have some kind of foot soreness and just some stiffness as I'm going down the stairs in the morning. And that was gone. I felt really good early on. Maybe it increased my day-to-day recovery a little bit, but it's also hard to say because placebo is a heck of a drug, like I said earlier. So I'm looking for results. And so sometimes you could have just given me a sugar pill and I probably would have thought the same thing. Overall, I don't think that it did much for me, but I do think that it improved the inflammation. And I would not take it again because the benefit for me was minor and the risk is potentially high because we don't have long-term studies. So, anytime you're messing with stuff like that, we don't know if there's some issues related to increasing risk of cancer, and we just don't know. Anytime you're playing with the human body, you F around, you find out. My general rule is like, I'm not going to take anything that's not been studied long term. And so I think for me, it was a little bit overrated. Again, I've seen some incredible cases like my friend who did the Achilles injection directly. He had great results. So overall, I really can't give my opinion. I would lean towards overrated off my personal experience, but we don't know. So overall, I'm going to say properly rated as of now.